All right. We are, yeah, we're live. All right. So hello everyone. My name is Shantae Smith Daniels, and I have Chloe with me, and we are ops people, and we're on a journey to do business better in operations. And so today we're just going to talk about our philosophies to how we incorporate ops in businesses and why we think purpose driven operations is so important. So I'm going to give the floor to Chloe so she can introduce herself and tell us more about what she does.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Shante. I'm Chloe Handelman, and I work as a fractional COO for what I like to say better businesses. So those are businesses that are using their business as a force for good. That's a slogan used by B Corps quite often, but not just limited to B Corps, but any business that's really focused on having a mission to making the world a better place. And I work fractionally as an operations leader within organizations, and I also do operations consulting as well if there's need for more ad hoc support. I found my way into operations through my background in engineering and in consulting, and always loved being the person that was in between all of the different things, the business units and whatnot, and between engineering and business and all that, and slowly realized that good operations really make for a better workplace and a better experience for team members and better outputs for the business. And that then bled into an expanded love for just making business better in general, and been navigating that path since I've gone independent. 6 years ago, I left corporate. So it's been a fun journey. And yeah, I'm sure we've got lots to talk about today.
Yeah, we do. We do. So I will give y'all just a little insight of how I met Chloe. So we're in a group called Fractionals United, and we connected. Our philosophies are very similar to how we manage operations. So I came from corporate experience and then joined Fractionals and the fractional field, and I love it. I love operations, and I I know that sometimes operations is that team that gets put in the corner until it's last minute. And so one of my missions is to kind of try to get operations more to the forefront and make us a little bit higher on the pedestal. We're all even, but you know what I'm saying. So, Chloe, so let's talk about how we implement operations in purpose driven businesses. So, what's the foundation, in your opinion, of doing that?
I think the foundation, just what you're describing in terms of operations being put in a corner, for me, it's helping people to actually really understand, like step zero is helping people to really understand what operations encompasses. And I've been in multiple different, read so many books and courses and things like this, and everywhere describes operations differently. And so everyone's view of operations, I think, changes what then helps you to implement operations at an organization. And the way I like to describe ops is strategy and execution. And I think there's like a lot of times strategy might sit in C-suite, and they might not think that that sits in operations. But I see strategy as the box that goes around the execution of strategy and the execution of day to day. And all of that is operations and the processes, systems, and people that make things happen in business, whether it is your marketing initiatives or your sales initiatives or your delivery of your products and services. Um, and so I think step zero for an organization is to really redefine, if it's not already defined that way, what the role of the operations team is. And so everyone is clear about what is the bounds and what are the bounds for the people in those roles. And it'll look different at every single business.
Mhm.
Because if an operations leader at an organization has been told strictly that they're not involved in strategy, or like the development of strategy, their role is going to look a lot different to one, like I think the way that you operate and I operate is we are heavily involved in the strategic development and refinement. And that's going to be a bit of a different experience in the organization. I can't remember if that answered your exact question, but when you asked it, I was like, I feel like this is the route my brain went. So,
Yeah, yeah, no, it answered it. You talked about just clarifying like what the ops role is in the organization, and I like that you mentioned one size doesn't fit all. I think a lot of times in organizations, they may see another organization's ops and be like, "Oh, I need to put that into my organization." But operations is not cookie cutter, right? It goes
yeah.
by like the organization, like the product, the people, right? For real, the culture, because your culture kind of can sway how your ops is moving and how involved we are in the ops. So no, you answered that question. That was good. That was good. That's good. So one of the things when I implement ops, I always look at the company's mission statement, and we kind of focus on businesses like in B Corp or businesses that are trying to do business better, that are doing business better. And so when I'm doing my operations, I kind of focus on that mission. And that mission sets the tone for the organization, even in ops, like how we communicate with the team, how we're implementing processes. So, in your work or in your experience, how have you been able to incorporate like the company's mission into what you do and how you implement ops operations?
Yeah, I love this question because the turning point in my career where I decided I would only work with better businesses was when I was working with an organization, and we were going through their operation strategy, and we were actually implementing EOS, entrepreneurial operating system. And I asked about what the mission was, and he was like, "Oh, no, 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 we're not setting the mission or a vision yet. Like, we just need to prove that we can make money." And I was like, and you could tell within every business decision that there was no direction, right? And it was hard for us to choose things, what to do. And then also in terms of like the way of like valuing the team members, well, it wasn't team members necessarily. It was like individual contributors. He was outsourcing a lot of the things.
Mhm.
And just like every part of the business like felt like it was dead, right? And that for me translates into the mission and not just the mission, but also the vision. But I also say so there's the external vision of like the world we want to see
Mhm.
come to existence because of our organization and the work that we're doing. But I think also setting a vision for, and maybe I'm digressing from the mission question, and maybe we can circle back to this point, but um, like setting the internal vision of like what does our organization look like in
Mhm.
10 years, and like is it massive, is it still lean, is it, are we in this market or that market, and like you can't get that type of visual for that vision internally from just your mission and vision
Right.
statement alone.
Right.
But I think that still a mission and vision statement really do create that excitement, that North Star, that like understanding of like this is what we're here to serve in a greater way. And I think the world is asking for that, not just out of businesses, but like the next generation of workers. Like they're not gonna just work for a company that doesn't matter. There's always going to be people, but I think we'll see more and more that you need to have a strong vision and mission to attract younger talent.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think especially after the pandemic, right? There's just for all generations, there's a new way of working, a new way of being involved with work. How we see employment's different. So it's really, to me, important that we use that vision and mission to filter throughout the business. And to me, I'm an ops person. So to me, ops is vital for that. So let's talk
Yeah.
about the importance of setting a good culture. Let's talk about the role of operations and culture within organizations. So, to me, operations is kind of the heartbeat of the organization because we're working with all the teams, making sure everything works well. And us as ops leaders or integrators, we have to communicate like the shared vision to everyone. So, in your experience, What value have you seen to making sure you implement that culture into the organization?
I think it goes similar to what we were talking about just a bit ago, about every ops role is different, right? And so if it depends on who's rolling out the change in the organizations I've worked with and the role I often play, I am the one who is rolling out the change, or my team is. And I think that any change initiative or any project that is to further the vision and the mission, um, that sets culture, right? So setting a culture of continuous improvement, setting a culture of, um, you know, like of the core values of the organization, that ripples through with every single engagement you roll out as an operations um, leader, and that rolls out in every weekly meeting or one-on-one that you have with the team. And so by living and breathing the values that have been set by the organization and the mission and the vision, and making sure that's front of mind, the operations team has the position in the company that they are constantly interfacing with all these other departments. And so by representing it yourself and making sure your processes and your meetings and your systems all embody the shared culture that is defined by the value core values of the company, that's how you can really ripple it out. But there's even small things like I was on a chat about running quarterlies for businesses who run on EOS, and we were talking about how to run quarterlies. And one of the things is in terms of like reflecting on the previous quarter. Something I've done with an organization is, instead of me reading out, because was the fractional COO, instead of me just reading out like all the projects that were done, one of the core values of the team was, I don't know if it was explicitly called out, I can't remember how it ties, but it was about like the team empowerment and the team owning projects and like having that initiative. And so what I did was I had the team member describe and explain the project that they finished, right? And like let them own it and deliver it to the whole team back, because that then promotes the culture that we're trying to have. I could have just easily spent a fraction of the time quickly going over his bullet point about what he did. Instead, I gave him 5 minutes to explain to the team what he did, why he was proud of it. And that's something that can kind of like ripple the culture through. So these small choices of things that you make as a leader in an organization really give that up, even if it might take a bit more time or something like that, it might cause you a bit more of an inconvenience. It's an opportunity to really keep the boat on track to the direction that we're trying to get, in the ways of working that we are all in alignment with.
Yeah, I love that you said that. So that brings me into another question. So we're talking about ops and like what we do. So, in your opinion, when does someone need to bring on an ops leader in their business?
Oh, before they realize it.
I know, we're on the same page, but like just elaborate a little bit more for the audience in case they're like, I can wait for ops, I can get the sales, I can do everything. I'll think about ops in about 5 to 10 years. So go ahead and
Well,
elaborate.
I think the thing that's really beautiful of this movement of fractionals is helping people to realize like you don't need to pull in a full-time resource right away, and there's options for you, right? And I know there's been consultants in the past, but I think that like I came from corporate consulting. Like I interviewed with all the, I've seen all the companies. I've worked for one. Like I get what it's like, the connotation on consultants are, but I think what's really, really cool lately is that like this growing movement of operations leaders who can come in fractionally, right? And so I think even getting consultations, just raising an awareness. If you don't have the funds to hire yet, it's raising your awareness of what the role of operations is, so you realize what hat you're wearing when you're wearing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think getting from startups, even from this, like from a startup, like right when you start things, like consult with an ops leader just to get some general ops guidance and some direction. And then you'll know when's the right time, when like you literally don't have enough time for things. I mean, that's obviously a bit too late because you still have to onboard the people into it. But I get it. Like, I'm not going to say like, oh, hire someone when you don't have the funds and it'll like make your business fail because
Yeah.
you don't have the cash flow. But, get some early support, get some early consults, do an audit, get yourself set up. And then it's to a point where you're ready to step out of the day to day. And you're really ready to like not be so intimately involved with every single aspect of running the business. I don't know. What would you say, Shante?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I'm not going to tell a business owner you have to hire a fractional CEO and you just started your business last year. I'm not going to do that. But what I will say, like you said, just get an operational audit. Have someone from ops come in and start creating that framework. So as you grow, you're putting these things in place. You're aware of um, items you may be overlooking. And then when you're able to afford it, because of course we gave you great information. So when you're able to afford it, that's when you bring on board like an ops leader, like you or myself. But I agree, and I think most of us I don't know about most of us in the fractional world, but I know I do, and I know you do. We do have like we will perform an operational audit and sit in and just look into the business and see what improvements you can make, and maybe just help you set up that framework. Um, and then when you're ready, we can come and also help implement and strategize some other things. So yeah,
Yeah,
we're on the same
totally.
page. We're on the same page. We're on the same page. Um,
Well,
so a lot of
actually,
times,
just to
go ahead.
oh, I just had a thought. I just posted this on LinkedIn yesterday. It was like ignorance isn't bliss, ignorance is business risk. Like
Yeah.
it's and I think that's the challenge is like sales and marketing is so in your face of like, oh, I don't have business. I need to do my marketing and sales. Yes, I agree. Like I totally agree with it. But people don't recognize they'll feel something's off, but they don't know what it is because they've not been trained in business operating models, right? And or they don't, they know they need to do their strategy work and they just haven't. And again, don't look at the cobbler's shoes, for example, right? Like
Right.
doing your own strategy is hard. Like
It
it's
is.
hard.
Yeah.
And I like this wall should be filled with sticky notes right now because I've been meaning to like redo some strategy work and like but when I was about to do my strategy refresh a couple days ago and instead I was talking to a couple businesses and I just had some consults with them and I'm like deep into their strategy. I'm like, all right, Chloe, it's like, so I get it about it's hard to like kind of look in the mirror, but sometimes you just need that ops audit. You need that like, hey, what about this and that, and then you can know what to prioritize because it's like you're able to talk it all out and you're like, oh, it's actually just this and this. It's like it felt like all of this, but we can actually focus on these two things and that'll move the needle enough
Yeah.
that we start tracking towards this vision that we're aiming for. So
Yeah, I completely agree. I met with someone yesterday and we kind of talked about that. There's they're business owners and they've been implementing some new systems and things. But they're the business owners, they're the CEOs, and they also have to grow their business. And so when you're the CEO and you have to grow the business and think of the strategy and make sure you're implementing the vision, some things can get dropped, right? Because we're only so much. I don't care, nobody's working like 200, that's ridiculous anyway, but we can only do so much, right? So like you said, sometimes it's great for someone just to come in, just take a look and say, oh, this is about to fall, or let's create a system for this, or did you notice this? And a lot of times I find, even talking to the team members, right, individually, like where are the operations gaps, like what do you need to do your job successfully, things like that. Sometimes like the CEOs don't have time to do that, which is because they're busy, right? And so that's where we come in and kind of talk to the people and figure out where the gaps are. And so to me, that operational audit is so important because that gives you a groundwork for where you have to improve.
yeah, I mean, I love team interviews are like honestly my favorite. It's just
Mm.
I think that might have come from I just remember like my first work experience. I was on the shop floor of a manufacturing plant and it was like working with the frontline workers and then like talking to the engineers and it's just like it's fun to see like it's not just fun, but it's great to see like the people who are literally making the money for the business, right? Like the people who are doing the work to in making the impact and changing the world, right? Like it's great to see and talk to them because they, like, just like you said, they know some of the ideas that, and maybe they've been in a position or at another organization that hasn't made them feel like their contributions are, or their thoughts and their ideas are going to help move the
Mhm.
needle forward. But we see time and time again, like human centered design and whatnot, like talk to the people. They have the solutions. I always say that to people. Like I've come into organizations, they come like it's like first week and they're expecting me to tell them what we need to do. And I was like, you've been working here for 2 years. I'm like,
Right.
I'm not, no, like, let's talk. Let's hear what you have to say. Let's hear what your ideas are, because your ideas are probably better than mine, to be honest, because you know the business and you maybe just haven't been like, talked to, right? And or not only that, but or given the systems to have a chance for things to roll out. So something I like to put in place with it's post operations audit, but then it's like into what you're actually doing with an organization,
Mhm.
but um, um, like a ticketing system, an internal ticketing system for improvements, right? So what what changes do we want to see in the organization, and the team members can submit anytime that they want any idea that they've got, and showing them that you will do something with that and that you will actually like listen to their ideas, and potentially it adds up to be a project, or you change a project because of their idea, and that really helps with culture and change management. Like that really helps that flow, so people feel like they want to get involved and they see their ideas come through, and then they realize they're an organization of improvement and change and progress. And yeah, I just spitball there.
No, that's good. It's similar. So I started out as a call center representative in an organization, and I found we didn't were well. Let's say this: the culture was such they didn't ask for our input, right?
Yeah,
So when things were given out, or tasks, or new strategies, or new incentives, it was like, "Here's the incentive, y'all do it," and it's like, all right, right. So that experience for me helped me to learn, like, talk to those people, like get, like you said, get the feedback, because 9 times out of 10 they're the ones touching those tasks or those workflows. So it's really important to get that feedback. So something I do is called Voice of the Employee. So that's similar to yours.
yeah,
So I set up a system where the employees can send suggestions or room for improvement or even things working well. And then we quarterly have a voice of employee meeting, right? And then we talk about what we can or cannot, like what we can implement soon, what's like in the future, and what probably isn't aligned with the business. Because to me, when you involve the employee on that level, it makes them feel like they're really part of what's going on in the company.
oh yeah. I so appreciate you sharing that. I remember, yeah, I was working with a call center. We were rolling out a project back when I was in corporate. And that was one of the reasons I left, because I was in these meetings and these people hated me. They hated me because I was there to tell them how to do their job different,
Mhm.
and I wasn't there to listen to them.
Mhm.
And it was horrible. Like I was like, this is, I don't want to be, and I was supposed to, like, I'm sitting there trying to like observe them, and they know that I'm literally just going to observe them. I'm going to go back to my room, talk to the other consultants, make a little PowerPoint, and then they're going to get some, so, like, they're not going to be consulted on the actual anything other than like,
Do it.
yeah. And so that's where it like has really driven me to work with like small businesses and startups and scale ups and like these businesses that I can really be intimately involved with the change and make the change a better experience for everyone. Because that's what feels good to me. I know it doesn't feel good to just push something down someone's throat and like do it. That's
Yeah,
not my
it
not my
it
style.
doesn't. It doesn't, and I think um there's a value to bringing them in on that conversation. You know, there's a value to just having them be a part of that process. So whoever's listening, don't forget your employees. Listen to them and document it and see what you can do, see what you can't do, but at least let them know that you're listening and
They are
they're working.
important.
Yep, yep, yep. All right, cool. So that's that. So when you go into one of these businesses as a fractional, how do you align with the other stakeholders? So, like, what's your process to talk to the other C-suite stakeholders you're working with?
Yeah. Depends on the organization, right? So the size, the team, right? And it also depends on, right, the engagement. So sometimes you've got a situation where it doesn't actually make sense for you to be a full team facing right out the
Mm-hmm.
gate, right? There does need to be like, yes, engage and bring your team in, but sometimes there is you could not ruffle feathers, but you could spook some people when if you're coming in to meet the team. So I like to obviously first understand, the dynamics from the founder's perspective or the CEO's perspective or whoever's hired. Um, and then it is through a lot of the time it's through that strategic work, right? So it's through the operational planning where we're talking about these different departments and pulling them into the conversation so that they are represented and that their departments are deeply involved with the discussion about the strategic plan, right? I don't want to just come in and like I'm biased. I'm always going to think that we should do more on ops. Like I I always will want to do more with ops, but I also know like the right balance, right? Um, of pulling other team member or other departments in as well. So I think pulling them in, they're involved in the leadership meetings, right? So making sure that those are cadenced meetings where we're all tracking on our initiatives and having opportunities to bring up cross-departmental challenges. Same thing with employee, like managing downwards, like managing laterally is also important. So, and understanding what they need from my department, what um, I need from their department, being able to have those healthy conversations and whatnot. How about you? How do you engage with other stakeholders?
It's the same, really. It depends on the organization and what my role is in that organization. Um, I am very I want to make, when I come in, I don't want to be ruffle, I don't want to ruffle feathers. So,
Yeah.
when the CEO or business owner introduces me, I make sure I have a separate introduction, as long as it's okay with them to say, look, I'm really not here to, ruffle feathers. I'm here to make this better for you and the organization. Right. And so that's really how I engage with the stakeholders, and depending on the organization, again, depends on, if I'm meeting with them on a regular basis or if it's more quarterly, or however that's set up. But I want them to make sure I'm not there to make their jobs harder. I'm definitely not there to, I'm there to rock the boat a little bit. Honestly, I am there to rock the boat for real. Let me back up. I am
No,
there
you're
to rock
there.
the boat, but it is for
I
the better of the business.
I think you're there to, what I say, well, it's rock the boat, but you're there to redirect the boat, which
Correct.
may cause some rocking in the
Hmm,
process,
hmm,
right? So,
right.
like, I don't know. I feel like rock the boat has a connotation that it's gonna tip. It's like, no, you're rocking.
Yeah,
You're
just
like,
like a
you're like, you're like
little
shaking the
wobbly.
boat. You're like
Yeah,
getting it to slowly shift over, like change the
yeah,
direction.
yeah, just a little
Uh,
wobbly.
well, it's like the analogy I've used before is like you're flying an airplane and changing one of the engines out as you're flying, right?
Hmm.
And so you're gonna expect some turbulence, right?
Yeah.
Like you've got to expect that turbulence, and but you need to change the engine. Like
Hmm.
it's some you need to make some tweaks, and so you tell the passengers that it's happening. The pilot and the engineer know what's going on. The stewardess know what's going on, and you're going to be changing out the engine, right? And
Hmm.
so that's that's what I think is also important about the, like, what's great to do, like an audit, like even if you don't call it formally an audit at the start of an engagement, you're doing your brain is auditing the organization as it is, and you're coming up with ideas. But I use those introduction meetings to other stakeholders as a point to gain trust and to like do an intro, but it serves as multi-purpose where I am collecting their thoughts and their inputs right off the bat and trying to show them right off the bat that I'm listening to what they have to say. And like each team member, I try to infuse some of the thoughts that they had into a discussion with the related to operations and see if I might be able to get one of their projects on the board, right? Just those are those early wins that you can really gain trust and to really pull everyone along with you
Yeah,
along the
yeah,
way.
I definitely agree with that. What time is it? 8:31. All right.
Yeah.
Let's just check the time. So another thing we had talked about is change management. So have you had to step into an organization? I know you have. So just give me your experience when you've had to step into an organization and help implement like change.
Well, I feel like we've talked about it a bit, right? So I think like when you're coming in and setting up a business operating model or setting up a strategy and rolling that out, that's change, right? And so that early adoption from team members, but I think also it's like trying to understand why the change is needed and making sure that everyone can understand the greater reason beyond this inconvenience, right? Like whether it's moving tools, like one time we were organization, we were shifting from Lucidchart to Miro, for example. Seems like a stupid change, stupid, but it's like it's little, it's not that big of a deal, but it took time, right? It took effort, it took resources, whatever. And being able to like help everyone understand, why are we doing this? Why is it worth your time to switch into this new tool? What does it mean for the business? What does it mean for the clients? What does it mean? Right. And helping people to understand why things are happening makes people less resistant to the change. Right. And obviously, again, like it's a very simple example, but explaining how, all right, it's cheaper to do it with Miro. We get a 2 year, we get a coupon for it. So it was free for almost 2 years, like this much savings. We have these additional features. It's this integration with the tool, and this is why we're doing it. And they're like, oh, okay, I will take the 30 minutes to transfer all of my client boards over to this other thing when I have all these other things I need to do on my list. But I understand the priority here. Right. And I think that's a big part. And then another thing is like when it's a bigger shift or whatnot, it's getting the not only like rolling out the change in terms of like you involve the team and you create the new process, but it's also then communicating it and communicating it and communicating it. And how do you ripple that communication through the organization? And how do you not get frustrated when team members forget the new way? Like people need to hear things, what, 7 times or something to remember. Like, so like, how do you create and design your organization so it's resilient to that? So do you have SOPs? Do you have project templates to, if there's a change in process, are they following a template every time so that they know, like they don't have to remember, oh, we now have step 6.5.
Mm-hmm.
It's just loaded when you load the new template for the next client project, right? So how do you like safe proof your change and just design it into the new way of working? But then for ones that you can't do that specifically, how do you communicate that? How do you make sure it's in the new team member onboarding? How do you make sure that they've been told in like live, they've been told in a written form, they've been told in their change in SOPs, and how do we, and reminded on the next quarterly, like how do we really make sure that we're communicating the change after it's gone in and involving the team in the change as much as possible while it's happening.
Yep, I definitely agree with all that.
How have you managed when like you're having like when you're going through the change and you're feeling resistance from team members on like addressing the change? Or sorry,
How
like,
I
yeah, yeah, I think that was the
Yeah, so
question.
how I handle it is I talk to the team. Like we set up sessions and I get feedback on it. And I just talk to them. I say, okay, we're implementing this, but it seems like it's not going well. I use different language than that. Can you give me your feedback? What's working well? Is there a part of the process that isn't clear? And when I start that session, I always explain, kind of like what you do, the benefits of the corporation or the company doing whatever we're implementing, right? So they understand the benefits and how it can help them in their roles.
Yeah,
Because sometimes there may be a new project, but the people aren't sure how it helps them in their roles, right? That may not have been communicated correctly. So I get on that session. I reiterate why we're doing this, and then, like I said, I ask them, okay, give me feedback. Is there something in this process we could do better? Is there something we need to clarify? Because basically, at that point, it's like they have to take that on board. Like they have to start using that process. So my job is to bring them in on that conversation. And even if they give me feedback that isn't actionable at that time, right? I can just be honest and say, well, you know what? I have that feedback, but the business is going in this direction, and we think this is going to be a benefit. So let's try this out, see how it's working, and then I'll check back with you in like 3 months, right?
yeah,
Um, so to me, it's really important to have those quarterly conversations or those conversations. When I had a sales team, I met with my sales team on a regular basis just to say, hey, how are you doing? I really kind of sat back in the session and let the agents lead the session and tell me what was working well, what wasn't working well. Um, and that kind of helped me figure out what we need to implement, what processes we had to change. Also, what was there training needed? Was whatever we onboarded, was it not clear when we trained it out? Was the training not sufficient? Do we have to do another training session? So that's how I deal with resistance when change is coming. I just talk to them and be like, "Why are you resisting? What's going on? And help me understand."
I think like I will always say that implementing a culture of continuous improvement is every organization must. It's must be a value. It must be core to organizations if they want to be resilient
Mm-hmm.
because marketplaces change, businesses change, and if you have start like you want to only be attracting talent that is adaptable because if they're not, when change is required, not only are you going to have to deal with the change, but you're also going to have to deal with the change of personnel
Mm-hmm.
and and even people who are the most at like okay with change sometimes might still just decide, you know what, this organization's not right for me anymore. And this change is too much. And I liked my old role. I liked my old way that we were working. I liked the old size of the organization and it's too big and it's too like for whatever reason. And I think that's something that in our roles as operations leaders, sometimes we're the ones who are operating as HR or operating in these functions where we need to hire and fire and
Mm-hmm.
or support someone in a transition out of the organization. And I've been in roles when that's happened because the change is coming in and it was the role was changing and it was just it turned into something that the employee just didn't want to do anymore. They just had other interests and they wanted to pursue other things. And that's hard too. And that's very real too. And you're gonna, you're going to have people who, the analogy a former client of mine was using was people are going to get on and off the train. The train's going to keep moving and they're going to get on and off the train at different points. They might get off and then they might get on later when this train circles back around. But, you know, people are going to get on and off the train and it's the operator and the visionaries um, responsibility to make sure the train's headed in the right direction and that the railway's clear and that we do the road work up ahead when we know we're going to have to go around this mountain, so we're going to so but people are going to get on and off along the way. And so resistance to change management includes that. It includes identifying when someone also and helping to contain that as well, right? Like someone might be having challenges with the change and it might be reflecting that they might need to leave the organization or so get support in a different way. And you want to make sure you quickly jump to that, give it attention, give it love, give it support, that and recognize what the best thing is for the rest of the team. Because very quickly, depending on the size of the team, depending on who that person is in their previous role or their current role, it could have a major detriment to the rest of the organization and take the wind out of your sails for the initiative. And you really need to address that, and support that. And I say like address, but like literally, I actually support, right? And with purpose driven and like compassionate leadership, right? Meet the person where they're at. If they're resisting, there's good reason for it, and
Right.
saying that they're wrong for resisting is not human, right? Like they've got their own motivators and their own reasons. And so helping them to get what they need, and whether that's with the organization or not. And sometimes you just gotta make tough business decisions, but
Mhm.
it's all part of it.
Yeah, that's true. And like I said, when they, sometimes you have to have that discussion, like this is the way the business is going, right?
Yeah.
So, we'll help support you through it. A lot of times I've run into some businesses where they started up and they may have hired family members, and I got cool family members, but I don't know if they're going to be in my business a long time. You know what I'm saying? So, they hire family members and we get to a point, I step in, I'm like, oh, this isn't the right role for them, right? They may hire like their niece or nephew to do customer service, right? That's a skill. Everybody can't do customer service, right? So there's a conversation. Do we want to train them to do better in customer service, or do we want to get someone that's more experienced? Because we're losing out on sales, or our responses aren't clear, and people are dropping the ball. So that is a discussion that we have to have with people, because we're in a role to make the business grow and be better. And
Yeah.
sometimes the role outgrows them, and they're not able to, and they may not want to like take on more responsibility. Honestly. So we do have to have that conversation with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's part of, there's the not so glorious sides of our roles. Sometimes it's like those, like it's sometimes these conversations are hard.
Yeah.
But I think what's really powerful is, leading with love, like leading with compassion, and really trying to meet people where they're at and listen and support them. And you know if you handle things in like as elegant of a way as you can, then hopefully you can make a situation that would have otherwise been really crappy be a little less crappy, right? Just by being there for the people and
Yeah.
listening and supporting them, and you know calling a spade, like, okay, this is a not so great situation,
Right.
and we wish it could work a different way, like, right? Just having that EQ to support the team is really important. I think those operations leaders with high levels of EQ can be the key that a lot of visionaries need, because a lot of times the founders and the CEOs like just are go 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 go, like we need to do this, we need to do this, and they don't they might not, because they're not so intimately involved with the team, they might not have the right level of support and engagement with the team members. Even if their heart is in the right place, they might not just have those skills. So tapping in on those is really helpful when you've got someone on the team that can actually have those conversations, and not burn bridges with people that you've worked with.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the EQ. Like seriously, especially in ops, we talk to so many people, and it's not always good news, right? But we have to be clear and concise what we say. But I always say people drive your business. I think sometimes businesses forget people drive your business. So people, not only your customers or your clients, but your employees, right? Your contractors, your vendors, they're actually
Yeah.
driving your business. So it's very important that we learn how to communicate with them from a space of they're people too, and they have lives. Whatever this job is or whatever they're doing is not the only thing in their world. And it's, to me, important to approach people like that, like,
Yeah.
with some empathy and peace and grace. So awesome. All right. So this was great. So Chloe, let me know. Why don't you let us know, like, what do you have coming up? Do you have any products or offers or services you're launching or have currently?
Yeah, I mean, my virtual door is always open for connection calls. So if anyone wants to talk more about what Shantae and I were talking about today, always here for that. But right now, I've got two things that I'm offering. So operations strategy workshops. So basically going in and being able to do you can flex and size it as people need, but pre-work questionnaire and mini audit number of workshops depending on the outcomes that we're desiring and follow up. So those operation strategy workshops can help set the vision for organization, identify operational gaps, and then really define an operational roadmap to move ahead. And then I also offer fractional COO or operations leadership roles. So got some slots coming up in September and October. So if you're looking for a right hand woman in your organization, give me a shout. So that's my what I've got on. And what about you, Shantae? What do you've got on?
So I am starting a series called Purpose, Plan, and Prosper. Like P words, right? Purpose,
Oh
Plan, and
yeah,
Prosper. So it's a
love it.
quarterly workshop for business owners where we create strategy. So they may not have an ops leader on their team, but during these workshops, we're looking at their strategy and we're goal setting. So the goal settings including, why are you doing this goal? How are you going to measure this goal? Who's responsible for measuring this goal? Do you have the tools to measure, whatever goals you're setting? And so it's just a space for business owners to get together and hear each other, like, create their ideas and be a little collaborative space. And so with that, each workshop, whoever comes during that next quarter, we're about to go in the fourth quarter. So during fourth quarter, they have a session with me, just accountability. So, they can tell me if they did or they're on their way or they didn't. And I can just give them some feedback to what they need assistance with if they need anything. And then, like Chloe, we're all fractional COOs, so I have some space for some clients on retainer. So, and then also, I kind of like talking to people. So if you just want to catch up and talk, I mean, me and Chloe can talk ops all day, all day. So if you just want to catch up and talk about ops or whatever you want, just give us a call. So that's what I have on board. And this was my first LinkedIn Live. So I want to thank Chloe
Same.
for joining. It was amazing. Thank everyone for being a part of this. And I just really appreciate everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, great. See you later.